You have never met anyone, and I mean anyone in your life. You have never met another human being. I don't mean that as a metaphor. I mean it literally. And I think if you follow this all the way to the end, it's going to change something. Not in the way that takes anything away from you, in a way that makes everything you've ever felt about another person feel even more strange and beautiful than it already did. So stay with me. Just think about the person you're closest with, the one whose face you know better than your own, the one who you can tell from one word how they're doing. You've known them for years, maybe even decades. You've held them when they were falling apart, and they've held you. Now, what do you actually know about what it's like to be them? Not what they've told you, not how they come across, what it actually feels like to wake up inside their mind, to see through their eyes, to carry whatever it is they're carrying. You don't know, and you can't. And that's not a failure of intimacy. That's just the truth of who we are. Every person you've ever met is living inside a world you have never entered. And you are living inside of a world that they never entered. We all, in the most literal sense, are alone in this world. And I keep coming back to the question of what that means. For love, for grief, for the feeling of being understood, for all of it. Here's something I can't stop thinking about. When someone you love walks into a room, what are you actually receiving? Light bouncing off of their body, hitting your eyes, getting converted by their brain into an image? Sound waves from their voice turning into electrical signals, becoming something you experience as their laugh. And underneath all of that, your entire history with them. Every memory, every feeling, every story you ever told yourself about who they are. What you experience is not them. It's your version of them, a rendering, built from everything they've ever managed to get across to you and reassembled inside of you into a person. Which means the version of them that you love, the one that lives in you, is something you partly built yourself. From the signals they sent, from the way those signals landed. And here's what gets me about that. Even in the moments that felt closest, even lying next to someone in the dark, even in conversations where you thought, finally, someone understands, you were inside of your own experience in that moment. And they were inside theirs. Two completely private worlds, briefly lit by the same feeling. There's a distance underneath closeness that never fully closes. I think we feel it sometimes without knowing what it is. That ache just underneath love. That sense that no matter how close you get, there's still something just slightly out of reach. That's not you failing at connection. That's what connection actually is. Two private worlds reaching towards each other, never fully arriving, and somehow that reaching is enough to build a life around. I think about this when I think about grief. When you lose someone, like when they're gone, what exactly have you lost? Their body, yes. Their voice, the specific way they move through the world. But you've also lost the source of the signals, the transmitter, the thing that kept sending you new information about who they were, kept updating the version of them that lived inside of you. And what's left? The version of them that you built from all the years of signals, that's still there, still inside of you, still a part of the world you carry around. Their laugh, the way they said your name, the things they taught you that you didn't know they were teaching you. I find that comforting in a way I can't fully explain. Maybe something persists that we don't have a good word for. And I think about this when I think about being misunderstood. Because if what another person receives is always a rendering, always their interpretation of your signals, then being misunderstood isn't just a malfunction. It's what happens when a signal travels across that distance and it gets reconstructed differently than you sent it. It doesn't mean they don't care, and it doesn't mean they're not trying. It means they're working with what came through. the same way you're working with them. Maybe that's the most honest thing you can say about any relationship. We're all doing our best with what comes through. And somehow, across that distance, through all that translation, some things arrive most exactly as they were sent. Someone makes you feel completely seen. Someone knows without being told that something's wrong. Someone reaches across the gap and finds you. What is that? What is the thing that crosses? I don't know, but I think it might be the most important question there is. The image I keep coming back to is this. Two people, separate houses, night, lights on in both. They can see each other through the windows, clearly enough to wave or see when something is wrong. They're clearly enough to, after years of looking, they know every expression, every gesture, every small thing that's only the other person's. They can open the windows and talk, pass things through it, music, words, sometimes just the comfort of knowing the other light is on. But they can't step into each other's house. Not fully, not all the way. The closest they can get is standing at that window and looking and letting the other one look back. And somehow, from separate houses, through glass, across a gap, they build a life together. That's what I think that love is. It's not merging or becoming the same person. It's standing at a window long enough for the other person's light to start to feel like home. What strikes me is how this is still possible from separate homes. How much warmth travels through that window. How deeply you can know someone you've never fully arrived at. I used to think closeness meant the distance disappearing. Now I think closeness is just two people who have stopped minding it. I've been sitting with this long enough that I went to see if anyone else had been there. And the answer is everyone has, eventually. If you follow the question far enough, you end up in the same place. There's a word for what we've been circling, solipsism. The idea that only one thing you can know absolutely, certainly, is your own mind. I've been sitting with this long enough that I went looking to see if anyone else had been there. And the answer is everyone has. Eventually, if you follow the question far enough, you end up in the same place. There's a word for what we've been circling around, and I hope I don't mess this word up. It's called solipsism. The idea that the only thing you can know with absolute certainty exists in your own mind. That everything else, other people, the world, time, is something you're inferring, experiencing, and constructing from what arrives. Most people find that idea unsettling and move away from it very quickly. But I don't think it's saying something bleak. I think it's just pointing out that something may be true here. That your reality, the world that you inhabit, is always and only ever going to be experienced by you. You can't step outside of that. No one can. And here's the thing that gets me about that. You cannot step outside your own consciousness to check what reality looks like from anywhere else. It's not a limitation of technology. It's not something we haven't figured out yet. It's baked into the structure of what it means to have this experience. The observer can't step outside the observation, which means the most basic question. Is there a world out there that exists independently of anyone experiencing it? Not because people aren't smart enough, because the question is structured in a way that makes it unanswerable from the inside. And we're all on the inside. I find that oddly freeing. Like the uncertainty isn't a gap in our knowledge. It's a feature of the territory. The mystery isn't wanting to be solved. It's just what's here. So here's where it gets strange for me. If every consciousness is its own private world, then what's the physical world? What's this place where we all seem to agree we are? What's it for? Because it's not just a backdrop. It's the only place where any of this exchange is possible. The only medium through which a signal can leave one private world and arrive in another. Take away the physical world and there's no window to stand at. No way to pass anything through. What if that's exactly what it is? Not where we live, but where we meet. The contact surface, the interface between worlds that can never fully touch. There are traditions, old ones, strange ones, ones most people never heard of, that describe the physical world almost exactly in those terms. Not as a primary reality, but as a meeting place. The layer where separate things can exchange information without merging. Some of them have names for structures that maintain that layer, that keep the separation intact while still allowing the signal to cross. I'm not asking you to believe any of that. I find myself drawn to it, but I hold it lightly. What I find harder to dismiss is the underlying shape. The idea that what we call the world might be less like a place we inhabit and more like a language we share. A protocol, an agreed upon medium that isolated points of consciousness use to reach each other across a distance that can never fully close. Which means every word you've ever spoken to someone you love was a signal sent across that distance. Every time you felt understood, something crossed, something made it through. And I think that's worth sitting with. I've been thinking about this long enough that it started to change things quietly. The loneliness is just different now. I used to experience loneliness as a problem, something to fix, something that meant I hadn't found the right people yet, or that I was doing something wrong. But if every consciousness is private by nature, if the separation is structural and not personal, then the loneliness isn't a sign that something has gone wrong. It's just a condition. It belongs to everyone. Every person you ever passed on the street is carrying it too. That doesn't make it disappear, but it makes it feel less like a verdict. And grief is different too. When I think about the people I've lost, the transmission ending doesn't mean that the signal disappears. The version of them that got built inside of me over the years of everything they managed to get across, that's still there. And it's not nothing. That might actually be the most durable form they take. It also makes me want to try harder, to find better words, to ask a question I usually skip because I assume I already know the answer. Because if we're all standing at windows, if every real moment of connection had to work hard to exist, then it deserves that same effort in return. And maybe the most unexpected thing, it makes the ordinary moments feel enormous. Two people sitting in a room, not saying much, comfortable in that quiet. The fact that that's even possible, that two entirely private worlds can arrive at the kind of ease with each other, is actually extraordinary when you look at it clearly. We just forget to look at it clearly. Two people at the end of a long day. One of them reaches over and puts their hand on the other's arm. Nothing else, just that. And the other one doesn't pull away. When I hold that next to everything we've been talking about, two entirely private worlds, sealed, unreachable, never fully touching, something in me just goes quiet. Because what just happened in that moment, one world sent a signal, the other world received it. Something crossed the gap. Something landed. Not everything, never everything, but enough. I don't know what that thing is. The thing that actually crosses. The thing that travels from inside one private world into another and arrives as warmth or recognition or the feeling that you're not completely alone in here. I don't think anyone fully knows, but I think it's the most real thing there is, whatever it is, the signal that makes it across. And I think if you pay attention, really pay attention, you can feel it happening in the small moments you normally scroll past. That's the thing I wanted to leave you with. See you next time.